Welcome back everyone. For today's video, we're gonna talk about basic geometry patterns that you should know. You're gonna be able to see these patterns in many chess games. So one of the first things I would like to mention is look for tactics putting the queen on h5, right? So we have the coordinates A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and h5. So this is the coordinate where you, with white, you're gonna spot it, and then with black, it's going to be the queen on h4, right? You only need one move to get there. Okay, so let's say we play this opening, we start with e4, and they play something symmetrical e5. We develop the knight, that's good. Then they decide to weaken this diagonal, right? So always, every time they weaken this diagonal next to the king, then there's gonna be tactics. Here we can take this pawn, develop the knight, and now we can strike with this move, queen h5 right away. So queen h5 is attacking the king. They have to move, and let's say they want to move this pawn. That will be a mistake. We can just take, and if they take back, this rook is hanging. And the best move in the position is going to be to move the king. Okay, perfect. We can even start an attack, developing the bishop. Let's say they move the knight, kicking out the queen. Okay, we can give another check. Yeah, this is completely winning, as you can see it. Because now the king is in trouble, it's in the middle of the board. This is not good for black. Okay, let's see other examples. We have the same team in this example. This is black to move, and they go with f6. Remember, weakening this diagonal. So we can immediately play queen h5. Queen h5 check. We ignore this threat, and they have to move the pawn to defend g6. Okay, one of the most common patterns in chess. Here we take this pawn, because as before, if they take, okay, we can just take the rook that is hanging. So yeah, this is very easy. I'm gonna give you another example where you have to decide what is the move. Okay, remember how I said queen to h4 with black? In this case, we don't really have this diagonal available. The knight is here, but white is going to move bishop to b5. Okay, they develop this bishop. Try to find the best move for black. We still have some geometry of the board. So before we landed here naturally, here it's the same thing to this diagonal, right? They have this weakened diagonal that we can access, and it's giving a check to the king. So sometimes it's not going to be all the time on h4 with black, but it can be on a5. So here, and they don't have the knight. They have traded knights, so they don't have the knight to defend this bishop. So once they move the pawn, we can just take the bishop. Yeah, it's completely winning. They can even trade pieces here. You just take back, and you have extra material, 4 versus 3. Okay, last example. We have similar tactics here. So the knight is hanging, black takes. What move would you make? It's the same thing, right? So queen to h5, is that even possible? Yeah, it's possible, because now once we take, this cannot happen. If they move the pawn, they lose the king. So in this case, we're also giving a check. The king has to move, and yeah, it's completely losing for black. Actually, they will have to move in a second here. They will have to move here, and we can even sacrifice the bishop. Once they take, we just take back, we check, and it's completely winning for white. One of the most powerful combinations in chess is going to be bishop plus rook. They form a right triangle. So if we draw the lines here to the corners and how the bishop moves, plus how the rook moves, we form this right triangle. Okay, so in this case, the king moves, king to h2. We only look for check, right? So also I would like to mention, this bishop can be here, or here, or here. So it doesn't really matter where the bishop is, as long as it is protected, or you have a pressing move, a check, or a capture. Then we just go to the corner, giving a check, the king moves, and we give another check. Rook is protected by the bishop, so the king has to move again, and we give a check. The king is forced to move. They can also repeat moves, but now we're winning the piece, and yeah, this is completely winning for white. Okay, we have exactly the same concept here, but we don't have to move the rook. In this case, black goes rook to takes on f3. This is white to move. Try to find the winning move for white. In this case, we cannot give a check here. The queen is protecting the square, so we can give a check with the bishop instead. And if you're paying attention, this is a light square bishop. It's not a dark square bishop, so sometimes it's going to be, most of the time, not all the time, depending on the position and the arrangement of the pieces. But the light square bishop is going to have this combination with the rooks. Well, there is no moves, there is no good moves here. If they go to the corner, we just give a check here, and after queen goes here, this is checkmate. The best move in the position is actually an interposition of the queen. We can just take, and if the king moves, we have this check, and yeah, this is losing for white. And then the next best move, let's say, wait, let's go here. Let's say the king moves. Okay, we can still give a check to the rook. The queen moves, and now we give a check with the rook. So yeah, this is completely winning for white. Just look for this right triangle. In many positions, you're gonna see the long diagonal of the bishop plus some combination with the rooks. Okay, last example, bishop plus rook, they form the right triangle. We have this pattern, and we just have to complete it actually. So, oh wait. We have again bishop plus rook, they form the right triangle. The bishop is here, and now we also have a rook on the corner on the h file. It can also be on the a file if the board was reversed. So we just complete this pattern. Actually, bishop goes to e4 here, and then this is checkmate. Naturally, the knights are going to land on the f and the c squares, and this is very dangerous because the f square is only protected once by the king, and the king is not very good at defending, not by itself anyway. And then the c pawn at least is protected by the queen, only protected once, right? So if we move the knight, I can just reach this square with only 3 moves, right? I can just get there in 1, 2, 3 moves. The same thing with black, 1, 2, 3. And if we draw the same pattern with black, with the c pawn, we just reach that square in 3 moves. So it's not a lot. In this game, I play one of my favorite openings, the English, and then I strike with d4. They made the mistake of playing d6. So here I can just trade queens, and then I'm gonna go after this pawn, right? So they play e4. Okay, I wasn't even really worried about capturing the pawn. So I play knight to e5, and they go, oh, I'm going to defend because I know this idea. Okay, I'm just gonna get rid of this knight. Once they take, I give a check, and I win the rook. So always try to target this f square with different pieces. In this case, the knight. The knight, you only need 3 moves to get there. So yeah, this is very easy tactic to spot. Okay, we have a puzzle here. As you might see, the knight landed in 2 moves into this square, right? e5. Black plays h5. This is a blunder. So here, just like in the previous example, we can get rid of the king, of the queen, not the king. And now we can fork the 2 pieces. It's gonna land on the f square. And yeah, this is completely winning for white. Last example of the knights landing on the f and the c square. I haven't really shown you any examples where they land on the c square. But here we're also going to use a tactic from a previous team, a previous concept. So queen to h4, right? Queen lands to h4 naturally. Wait a second. Why did you just move the queen? Queen h4. Then we have this check. The king moves. Okay, now the knight lands naturally in this square. They took 3 moves to get there. And okay, we're gonna win the queen. A really common pattern you wanna look for is if you're playing white, look what that is, this pawn that is hanging, h6. Sometimes it's going to be a6, although we don't really care about this one so much. And if we flip the board, it's going to be h3 and a3 for black. So we have this alignment of the pieces, a rook looking at the king, and this pawn is hanging. So if we take the pawn with the queen, okay, here in a second, we take the pawn with the queen, this cannot happen, they lose the king. So one of the smartest ways to defend will be g6. We can sack the bishop, take, and this is going to lead to a checkmate in a few moves. This is mate in 3. So we can play something like this, and then, yeah, this is checkmate. Okay, what happens if we're playing black? Same alignment of the pieces, bishop and rook looking like this. So we can just take here, and if they play like this, okay, the game continues. We can just go back with the bishop. We can start pushing the pawn, and yeah, this should be slightly better. I mean, it should be winnable for black. Now there is other type of alignment. It's the same type of alignment, but the king is in the corner, right? And if we look at it from black's perspective, this looks like nothing is happening. However, this pawn is hanging. h3 is hanging. So we can just take the pawn, and this is mating 1, right? This cannot happen. The bishop is attacking the king, and the king has the moves. The rule of the square. This is a visualization tool to help me determine whether I am on time to stop the pawn. So the pawn is going on this direction, and I don't really have to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4. It looks like I am not on time. This is white to move, so I draw the square, and then I have the same number of squares, right? Around to every direction. That is how we draw it. And now this is white to play. If I can get inside of this square in the next move, then I know I am on time to stop the pawn. So let's say I go here, and I don't really have to follow a specific direction. I can do this, or I can do just like in line, or maybe this zigzag. Usually I would recommend to go up, so maybe you have more chances to stop the king. So, but anyway, let me show you here what I mean. So I can go here, even go in zigzag, and I am on time to stop the pawn. However, in this position specifically, they don't have to push the pawn first. Actually, that will be a mistake from black. They will have to move the king first. They can move the king first, and the second rule is they can always shoulder me out, right? I could never, if I wanted to, if let's say the king was here, I could never enter this square. So let's see a few moves later. King b6, king d3, king to a5, king c3. I cannot enter this square, any of these 3. King a4, now he's shouldering me out. I have to try to stop the pawn and the king. King b4, king a2, king a4. We can repeat moves a little bit. King a2, and then king c3. Now he's ready to push the pawn. King a1, b4, king a2, and yeah, I have no moves here. So this is only forcing. Then b3, that will be a mistake, right? That will be just a stalemate. So they have to play king b3. Okay, just winning more space, winning what we call in chess the position. The position is he's forcing me to be in front of the king. So king a3. Now I have to move again, and I don't really have these two squares available. So let's say he kicks me out, and now king a2, king c1, b3, king d2, b2, and now he's promoting. This is completely lost for white. So yeah, use the rule of a square, and in this occasion we also have to take into account the movements of the king and this pattern, right, that is shoulder me out. Okay, the back rank mate, which is very basic, and yet some people at higher levels still fall for this trap, where there is not going to be a valid interposition in the back rank, right? So the back rank for white will be the first rank, and the 8th rank for black. Okay, in this case, black takes. So we just have to find the right combination. Here we can take this rook, and then they will have to defend. They have 2 possibilities, queen and rook. Okay, let's say I'm gonna defend with the rook. We cannot just take here. We still have to give another forcing check with the rook on d8, and now they have to take back, and this is checkmate. So there's more examples here. For example, they put the in this one, they put the rook on c1. Okay, we have to find the right combination because we cannot just play something like rook d8, rook d1. They just take here and we don't have a good continuation. Instead, we know they have this back rank problem. So we can take this rook with the queen. Once they take back, now we just trade the queen and we take back with the other rook. Yeah, this is checkmate. So this one should be simple, but you can just count the number of times they can take back, right? So here, let's say we sacrifice the rook, but it's not a sacrifice. We know this is winning. So rook c1, they can take one time, and we can take also one time. So if we start the attack, the person who starts the attack is going to have the advantage when both players have the same number of recaptures, right? Or captures. So here they can take once, and now this is checkmate. All right, this is basic endgame geometry. How to restrict the knight with the bishop. So where will you put the bishop where the knight cannot go? These are the 4 squares the knight may be able to land. So here we can just play bishop to d5. Bishop to d5, knight has no moves. And this position actually looks like a draw, right? It looks like it's similar material. If we can material only, then it should be a draw. But that's not true. So according to the computer, the best move is king h6. Trying to sneak in, probably grab this pawn. But here we can play king f6, king h5. If they go with this idea, we can even give a check. And the knight, again, these two squares are covered. King h6. And now we can go after the knight. Right, they have no moves. So then king g7, we can take here. Yeah, this is completely winning. Then we have other example where the next tip, if you want to restrict the knight with the bishop, I would recommend, okay, you have your light square bishop, put all your pawns on opposite squares. So they form a balance, a natural balance where your bishop can travel through these diagonals. It doesn't have any obstacles, and yet the knight is not going to have a lot of targets. In this position specifically, there is no real targets for the knight. They will have to put the knight here on e4 to attack this pawn, right? So this is impossible. Now this is way to move. We can grab more space in the center, king d4, then knight c6, best move according to the computer. I just keep an eye on my pawn, and then again the best move is just to retreat, trying to reroute the knight somewhere. It's very difficult to play. And now, as we saw before, I didn't mention it, but you want to put the bishop 2 squares in front of the knight, like this. So bishop to e4, right? Naturally, I know this is going to land, and the knight cannot go anywhere. So knight to c8, bishop to d5, I can aim for these pawns, and if they move, I can keep harassing them. So if they happen to move again, this pawn is hanging. They take, okay, I just take, and then it's gonna be very difficult to play for black. I can also start aiming at this pawn, and yeah, this is winning for white. Okay, so how do we restrict the bishop with the knight? This is a very similar example to the previous one. However, the bishop is in the same color complex as the pawns. Not very good. Second, they don't even have targets. The bishop doesn't have any targets. Even though the position looks very similar, this is a draw with perfect play. Now, they can put the king on d3, king d7, king e3. They can try to maneuver. They can try to push the pawn. So if they take, you just take here. There's no real targets. And more importantly, these 4 squares are covered, right? They cannot try to put the bishop here or there. I mean, well, maybe they can go here, right? They can also try to do this, but there is no real targets. And also my king, I can always play on the dark squares. And yeah, where do you go? Where do you go with white? Yeah, you can just try to dilly-dally and play something, but this is not going to go anywhere for white. Okay, so the bishop is always going to have more scope, right? They have, in this case, this diagonal, and they're kind of protecting this pawn. but we have accomplished the same trick as in the previous position, where these 4 pawns are not really a target for the dark square bishop, and they have their own pawns blocking it. So here we can play king d3 and try to infiltrate into the position and win this pawn. So king d3, for example, king e8, knight e3. So if they play this bishop, don't trade pieces, you can just go back. Base move according to the computer, which is crazy, bishop to f8, and then we keep infiltrating with the king. This is just losing, it's completely losing for black. All right, so let's say that you start the game, and this is just general advice for strategy and how to keep your pieces with some good coordination. So we play d4, d5, e3, knight f6, and now I have put my pawns on the dark squares. I'm gonna put my bishop here, and I have a good complement. If I'm putting all my pawns here, what I want to do is trade this bishop, ideally. So let's say we play knight c6, knight f3, b6. We play something symmetrical, b3, e6. Now, probably it's not the best move, but just for the purpose of this example, now I want to trade bishops. If they take here, they take, nice. And then let's say they castle. And what I want to do is keep putting all my pawns on the dark squares and never trade your bishop, right? Never trade your bishop until there is a good moment, maybe there is a tactic. But now we have a good something in mind, right? A plan in mind. We already kind of mentioned it, but I want to emphasize, whenever possible, attack the f pawn. On the same note, if you're a beginner, don't push the f pawn early. No, push other pawns. So the geometry of the board allows different tricks, gambits, and traps to attack the f pawn. For example, we can go with the scholar's mate, something like this, knight c6, and then we can target this pawn. If the opponent tries to attack the queen, this is a checkmate. So yeah, we're trying to attack the f pawn at all times. It's very possible, and even early on. All right, in this one, black plays knight takes on b3. They took our queen. Maybe common move will be to take back. No, we also have a winning combination. So here we have a check attacking the f pawn. Then they have to move. It's the only move available in the position. And now we deliver a checkmate in the next one. Occasionally you're going to see something easy, right? So here they take our bishop. We target the f pawn with the queen. This one is very easy to see. Now the king has to move. And we're gonna give a check. Once the king moves again, we capture the rook. Okay, but sometimes we have to work it out. For example, in this one, it is white to move, and what we want to release is this diagonal for the bishop. We're gonna talk about these diagonals in a second, but this combination is knight and bishop. So we have to get rid of the knight, right? So we can give a check here. This one comes with tempo. They have to move. The king is in check, so they can take with the bishop. And now we can even give a check here, but that will be, I mean, there is no continuation to this. Then the king moves, and now the knight is hanging, and bishop is hanging after that. Instead, we can capture the pawn with the knight, forking these two pieces. And now once the queen moves, we have captured the rook. Okay, the next tip, which is super basic but essential for beginners to understand the scope of this, is going to be put the bishops on the long diagonals, right? So we naturally fold into these two squares. These are the long diagonals for the bishop. And in many openings, we can do something like, this is not even, well, knight f3, and they can grab more space. But let's say they just play something symmetrical, and I'm gonna make some random moves here. So we can put the bishops on the long diagonals. Let's say we castle, and now my bishop has a lot of scope. This the same for them. Now, why don't you try this opening, which is really playable, and it's also good for beginners. This is the crab opening, right? So you're gonna push the a pawn, and now the h pawn. Okay, and now this is gonna look like a crab. So b3, preparing for putting the bishop here on the long diagonal, and you're gonna do the same thing on the other side of the board. So you're gonna put the pawn on g3 and the bishop on g2, and now you have this long scope, these long diagonals for the bishop. Okay, instead of playing the crab opening with a4 and h4, which I don't really love, but it's completely fine, why don't you put the pawn on b3 and then fianchetto the bishop, and you're gonna do the same thing on the other side of the board. So here you have these two bishops that are looking great on the open diagonals. So I'm just saying, because here you're gonna have the long scope, and these two bishops, let's say they put the bishops here. This is completely fine, by the way. It's playable, but the bishops don't have any long-term goals. Instead, these long diagonals have a great scope, meaning a lot of coverage on the board. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Please comment, like, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.